Madam Chancellor, Carleton graduates and guests, it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce our honorary doctoral recipient, David Morley. David Morley has spent 45 years working for international development and the rights of children. He is an internationally recognized expert on development, humanitarian response, and child well-being. He has led UNICEF Canada, Save the Children Canada, and Médecins Sans Frontières Canada. He has written 2 books, both of which were Canadian bestsellers. David Morley is co-chair of the Student Lewis Foundation and sits on the board of directors of the Canadian Partnership for Women and Children's Health, Catalyst Plus, and the Green Durham Association. He teaches in the Masters of Global Affairs program at the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. For his work, Morley has received the Order of Canada. Morley is also, I'm proud to say, a Carleton alumnus, having completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in history. Madam Chancellor, in recognition of a lifetime of humanitarian and international development work and the advancement of children's rights nationally and globally, I request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa upon David Morley.
Absolute pleasure. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Governors and upon the recommendation of the University Senate, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, Mr. President, Chair of the Board of Governors, graduates, and honored guests. Being with you here today makes me think back 47 years to my own graduation from Carleton. I had a history degree, and I'd been focusing on the politics of Upper Canadian settler society and was contemplating my next steps. I was unemployed. I was living in a basement apartment where the view out of the dirty window was of the undercarriage of parked cars. I could not see the sky. My parents were worried. So I turned to a family friend who was a human rights activist. Maybe he could help me find work. David, he said, you have your life ahead of you to work in an office downtown. You need to look further afield. And his advice? To work at a little project for street children in Costa Rica. So I went, and that made all the difference. I had expected to find children whose spirit had been squeezed out of them because of the hardships that they'd faced in Dickensian orphanages or life on the streets. Instead, I found lively, engaging, warm, and wise children who just captured my heart. They were children like Giovanni. Before I met him, Giovanni cared for Marco and Maria, his younger brother and sister, on the city streets of San Jose, begging, scrounging, doing whatever it took to keep the family alive. He taught me how to pick pockets. We'd be doing some extra homework, or he'd be working on his art, and suddenly my wallet would be in his hand. David, he would chide me, you've got to keep an eye on your things. You never know who you're going to run into around here. He tried hard to get my skill level up to his, but my fingers were never as nimble. And of course, I'd never had to steal just to survive. One day I asked him, Giovanni, what was it like to sleep on the streets? This time, he didn't laugh. He didn't smile. His voice grew hard. I did not sleep on the streets. And Maria and Marco didn't either. Every night, I'd go to the garbage, I'd get some newspaper, and I'd spread those newspapers out on city benches, and they would be our sheets on our beds. Because nobody was ever going to say that I couldn't give my brother and sister a bed when they really needed it. Nobody. Those newspapers, that bench. That was how Giovanni was able to hang on to some dignity while keeping his family alive. You know, we say that children are resilient, and certainly that's true, but I began to wonder why in a world with enough food, enough material wealth to provide a decent life for everyone, why must anyone have to live in such horrific circumstances that they are forced to display this resilience? This is the height of injustice. Giovanni became an inspiration for me, and he and the other children I met there set me on a lifelong career path. And along the way, I was fortunate enough to meet people who have done remarkable work advocating for improved policies here and around the world. And these policies and the practices they've engendered have borne fruit. They have laid the foundation for a child survival revolution. Child mortality around the world has declined by more than 2/3 since I first met Giovanni, and that means that fewer children are dying today than ever before in history. There are half as many undernourished children as there were just 30 years ago, and by 2020, more children were in school than had ever been known in all of human history. And Giovanni? 2 years ago, Giovanni fulfilled a lifelong dream, and he graduated at a ceremony a lot like this one with a law degree from the University of Costa Rica. Marco runs a little shop, and Maria, well, just the other day, she was posting pictures on Facebook of her 4 granddaughters. I've told you about one boy and how he inspired me to be a small part of a global revolution for good. My path has shown me that change is possible, and it has shown me that the work is very far from over. You are needed. We will not overcome poverty, war, and the climate crisis without each and every one of you. And what I wish for you is that you will find your Giovanni, your inspiration, and you will discover which of these urgent challenges needs you, where you can use the skills and the tools you've gained here at Carleton, and where you can contribute with all your mind and participate with all your heart. Thank you.